Hey there, welcome back to Tech with Harshit. So if you're planning to pursue an MS in the US, I'm sure you've heard about GRE and TOEFL. Maybe you're even wondering, why are these requirements? How do they actually affect my score? Don't worry, I have got you covered today. Today we are just going to have a casual chat about what these tests are, why US universities ask for them, and how can you prepare for them effectively. I'll also throw in some real world examples and tips, so make sure you stick around. So here's the thing, every country has their own education system, right? A student from India with a 8.5 GPA on a scale of 10 is evaluated differently from what a student from Germany with a 1.5 GPA on their scale would be. So GRE and TOEFL act like a common currency. It is how universities compare students from all over the world on a level playing field. The GRE is like a toolkit. It tests your quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and analytical writing skills. And honestly, for MS programs in the computer science or data science, quantitative reasoning is where you should really shine. Take Stanford for example. If you're applying for their MS in computer science, they expect the GRE Quant score of 166 or higher. Why? Because they want to know that you can handle the heavy lifting, algorithms, data structures, machine learning, the fun stuff. But don't ignore other sections. Analytical writing skills matter too. Let's say you're applying to a program like data science at the NYU. Your writing score shows them that you can communicate technical concepts, which is super important, especially while publishing research. Now let's talk about TOEFL. It's one of your English proficiency. Think of it this way, you will be attending lectures, participating in discussions, and writing a ton of assignments in English. TOEFL ensures you can actually keep up with all that. For example, UC Berkeley requires a score of 90 plus, but for competitive programs like Carnegie Mellon's MS in Information Systems, you need at least 100, and anything above 105 really stands out. And hey, TOEFL is all about real life scenarios. One task might ask you to listen to a lecture and summarize it. Another might test your ability to talk about your favorite book or explain a process. It's practical stuff you'll actually be doing in grad school. Firstly, they use them as filters. Imagine you're applying to Georgia Tech for MS in computer science. They set a minimum GRE Quant score of 160 and a TOEFL of 95. If your scores are below that, your application might not even be reviewed. Next thing is to balance out your profile. But here's the cool part, these scores can also balance out in other areas. So let's say your GPA in your undergrad school, which means your bachelor's, is a little on the lower side. Maybe let's say something around 7 or 7.5 instead of the usual 8 or 8.5. A high GRE score like 168 in Quant can show that you're capable of handling the academic rigor. A friend of mine actually applied for a program of data science in the Arizona State University. His GPA wasn't great, but his GRE score was stellar and his TOEFL was 110. And guess what? He got into the program and he excelled that program. Scholarships and assistance. Let's not forget scholarships. Some universities give preference for teaching assistant roles to students with strong TOEFL scores. Think of something like 110 plus. So these roles just don't help with finances, they're also a great way to gain experience. TOEFL is the king when it comes to US universities. It's designed specifically for American academic settings. You'll find tasks like listening to a lecture, reading academic texts, or answering questions about campus life. It is fully computerized, so no awkward face-to-face speaking test. IELTS on the other hand is more accepted in countries like UK and Australia. Some US universities like Harvard or Columbia do accept IELTS, but TOEFL is still the safer choice. So if all your target universities accept TOEFL, just go with it. It's aligned with what US universities expect and it will save you any confusion. Alright, let's talk about the GRE prep. I know it feels like massive mountain to climb, especially when you're juggling work, college, or just life in general. But honestly, it's not scary as it looks like. Once you break it down, you'll realize that it's like taking one section at a time. So let's sit down and chat about the sections, how to prep, and some resources that really worked for me and my friends. I'll throw in a few stories too, so it feels like we're just catching up over coffee. Okay, first things first. GRE is divided into 3 sections: Quant, Verbal, and AWA, or Analytical Writing, if we are being fancy. Now each of these sections test completely different skill. Think of it like cricket, batting, bowling and fielding. You need to practice them differently, but together they all make you a complete player. Let's start with Quant. I'll be honest, this is the section where most of us in India feel like, oh, I've got this. I mean, math has been drilled into us since our childhood, right? But here's the catch. The GRE Quant is not about how hard the math is. It's about how fast and accurate you can be. While I was prepping, I was thinking, oh, geometry is easy, I don't need to practice this. And in my first mock test, I had this sneaky question and bam, I completely blanked on it. So yeah, don't skip the basics. So here's what I would do if I was starting now. Brush up on the fundamentals, arithmetic, algebra, geometry, data interpretation. If you're rusty, start with class 9 and class 10 concepts. No shame in revisiting the old stuff. It's just the foundation. ETS official guide is your best friend. Seriously, this book is like infallible for GRE. The questions are super close to what you'll see on a test day. Barron's is great for shortcuts. I love their tips for solving problems faster. Like they teach you little tricks for quantitative comparison that saves so much time. Oh, and one more thing, timing. Timing is everything in Quant. I used to time myself while practicing even for individual questions. I set a 2-minute timer for each question, and if I couldn't solve it, I'd move on. It's painful at first, but it teaches you how to prioritize. This is the section that freaks most people out, and I get it. GRE verbal is like diving into this pool of complicated sentences and obscure words, but don't let that intimidate you. When I started, I was so bad at vocabulary. Like I'd see a word like gregarious and think, what does this even mean? But here's what helped. Word power made easy by normal names. It's not just about memorizing words, it's about understanding them. Like once you know that gregarious comes from a Latin word meaning group, it just sticks with you. Another tip, make flashcards. I used to practice Barron's 333 high frequency words using flashcards. I would go through them during my commute or whenever I had a downtime. And for the passages, okay, this is important. Don't skip. Read carefully and try to understand the main idea before you even look at the question. I made it a habit to read editorials from newspapers like Hindu, Times of India, etc. If you're in the US, you can study from other sources like New York Times or something. If you're in some other country, use that source. But I'm assuming that you're in India, so you're gonna go through the Times of India, the Hindu, and something similar. This is the essay writing section. You get 2 tasks. Write about an issue and analyze someone else's argument. Here's the thing. This section isn't about how fancy your writing is. It's about being clear and structured. Let me tell you what worked for me. I created a template. For example, for the analyze an issue essay, I would always start with an introduction where I clearly stated my stance, 3 body paragraphs with examples to back up my points, conclusion that tied everything together. I practiced this structure over and over until it became second nature. And trust me, it saves so much time on the test day. Also, if you're like me and tend to ramble when writing, use tools like Grammarly during practice. They'll help you stay concise and polished. You know, the thing about GRE prep is that it is as much about mindset as it is about the content. Here are a few things I wish someone had told me when I was starting out. Number 1, take the diagnostic test early. Before you dive into studying, take a mock test to see where you stand. It will give you a sense of your strengths and your weaknesses. Number 2, set a schedule that works for you. I know some people who swear by studying early in the morning, but I'm a night owl. Find what works for you and stick to it. Number 3, don't underestimate practice tests. Power Prep by ATS is the closest thing to real GRE. It took me 1 weekend leading up to my exam and it helped me get used to the format and timing. Number 4, keep a mistake book. This was a game changer for me. Every time I got a question wrong, I'd write it down, along with why I got it wrong. Reviewing this before every mock test helped me improve. Last but not the least, take breaks. Don't burn yourself out. Even during study sessions, I'll take a 5-minute break every 25 minutes to recharge. This is all about GRE in a nutshell. Quant is all about speed and accuracy, verbal is about mastering vocabulary and reading comprehension, and AWA is just clear, structured writing. Use resources like ETS Guide, Barron's Word Power Made Easy. And remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. If you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, just breathe. Break it down into smaller tasks and you'll get there. Trust me, if I could do it, so can you. Honestly, this is not as intimidating as GRE, but it still requires focus and a solid plan. Let's break this into section by section and see what TOEFL exam exactly is. TOEFL has 4 sections: reading, listening, speaking and writing. Each section is designed to test a specific skill you need in the academic session. But here's the good news. The tasks are very practical. You'll be doing things like reading passages, listening to lectures, talking about familiar topics, and writing essays. This section gives you like 3 or 4 passages and you have to answer questions based on them. The passages are academic, but they're not as complicated as the GRE passages. Here's how I prepared. Get comfortable with dense texts. TOEFL passages are like short academic articles. They'll cover topics like biology, history, or economics. To prepare, I read editorials from The Hindu and the National Geographic during my commute. A focus on the question types. TOEFL reading questions fall into categories like factual information, inference, and vocabulary. Noteful.com had amazing video lessons and broke down how to approach each type of question. Practice skimming and scanning. Time is limited, so you don't have to read every word. Practice skimming the passage to get the main idea and scanning for specific details when answering the questions. Listening section is all about understanding lectures and conversations. This session is usually fun because it feels like you're sitting in the US classroom. Now, how I tackled it? Listen to podcasts. It trained my ears to pick up on different accents and academic vocabulary. Take notes while listening. This was a game changer. In TOEFL, you're allowed to take notes during listening section. TOEFL taught me a simple system to jot down keywords and main points without getting overwhelmed. Simulate the test conditions. I practiced with Noteful's mock tests. They mimic the actual TOEFL listening section, so you get used to the pace and format. This is where most people feel nervous. You'll be speaking into a microphone about various topics and it can feel awkward at first. Now, how I made it work? Practice with Noteful's templates. Noteful provides speaking templates on every question type. For example, for the task where you describe your opinion on a topic, I followed their intro, reason 1, reason 2, conclusion structure. It made my answers sound polished and organized. Record yourself. This is the key. I recorded my answers on my phone during my commute. Listening back helped me identify where I needed to improve, whether it was clarity, grammar, or pronunciation. Another thing that I used to do was I used to listen back to my recording of my office meetings. So that taught me where I'm missing what and where I'm speaking something that is not understandable. Last would be speak every day. Now make it a point to talk about random topics in English daily. Like I would pretend I was listening to a TOEFL question about my favorite movie or book. This will have 2 tasks. One would be the integrated writing, where you read a passage, listen to a lecture and write a response. And the second would be independent writing. You'll write an essay based on a prompt. Now here's what worked for me. Learn the structure. For integrated writing, Noteful had a simple format. Introduction, summarize the main point of the lecture and message. Body, compare the key points. 3 paragraphs. Conclusion, wrap it. For independent writing, I followed the 4 paragraph structure. Introduction, 2 body paragraphs and a conclusion. Practice typing. TOEFL is a computer-based exam, so typing speed matters. So I used to type a lot during my office and that helped me increase my typing speed to what was required for TOEFL. Review sample essays. Noteful's essay examples were a lifesaver. They help me understand what a high-scoring essay looks like. Now here are some general TOEFL prep tips. Let me share the overall tips that worked for me. Number 1 and the most important, make the most of your commute. If you're in a city like Bangalore where traffic eats up half of your day, use that time. I use my phone to watch Noteful videos, listening to podcasts, and even practice speaking. Those 3-hour, 2-hour, 1-hour traffic stucks were not so bad after all. Take mock tests. Mock tests are the best way to simulate test day. Noteful's practice tests are fantastic. They replicate the TOEFL format so you're not caught off guard. Stay consistent. So even if you're busy, try to dedicate an hour a day to TOEFL prep. Small regular efforts will add up. Focus on the weak areas. For me, listening was my weakest section initially, so I spent extra time practicing, taking notes and identifying the main points in the lecture. Don't overthink speaking. Speaking section is not about perfect grammar or fancy words. It's about being clear and organized. Practice enough to feel natural. So let's wrap up the TOEFL preparation. So here's how I prepared for TOEFL. It's not about studying for hours on the end. It's about making the most of the time you have, and even if it's on the bus in the Bangalore traffic, use resources like Noteful, practice everyday section, and take mock tests to build your confidence. Remember, TOEFL isn't just an exam. It's a way to show that you're ready for the academic and the social environment of a US university. If you have any questions or want to share your own prep story, drop a comment below. Let's chat about it. Now let me give you some general tips to ace GRE and TOEFL exam. First, know your benchmarks. Research the score requirement for your target schools. For example, Stanford's MS in Computer Science, GRE Quant is 166 plus, TOEFL is 100 plus. Northeastern's MS in Information Systems, GRE is great for some, but TOEFL is 92 plus. Prioritize GRE Quant. If you're aiming for STEM-heavy programs, quantitative reasoning is your best friend. Use resources like magoosh or ETS or practice tests from some other source to master the problem solving under time pressure. Tackle TOEFL speaking. This section trips up a lot of people. My advice: practice speaking about your everyday topics like a challenge you overcame or your favorite project, or record yourself and listen for areas to improve. Clarity, grammar, and flow would be the areas you can improve. Schedule your tests early. Aim to take these tests 6 months before the application deadline. This way, you have enough time to retake the test if necessary. Use waivers if possible. Some universities like Northeastern or Purdue waive GRE or TOEFL for students with relevant workload or prior education in English. If you qualify, that's one less thing to worry about. Conclusion. So let's sum it all up. GRE is your academic fitness test. Focus on Quant for STEM programs like computer science or data science. TOEFL is your English fitness test. It's the gold standard for US universities, but a few accept IELTS too. Research your target programs, prepare early, and use waivers strategically. And that's it. If this helped clear up your doubts, hit the like button and subscribe to Tech with Harshit. Drop your questions or target programs in the comments and I'll share a tailored advice.